The history of our story began long ago. At one point, around 3 billion years ago, we were floating as little tiny atoms in the little Petri dish of the world. Fast forward to 6 million years ago, and we see the emergence of the first hominids. 1.9 million years ago, Homo erectus was the first species to leave Africa, colonizing other parts of the world. Then came us, Homo sapiens, the only surviving species of the Homo genus. But how did we rise to global dominance? Through the mechanism of civilization. The birth of civilization, from Uruk to empires. We begin our story in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia in 4000 BCE, nestled between the great Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Here, in the Sumerian city of Uruk, citizens developed a revolutionary way to harvest cereal grains like wheat and barley. This complex, strenuous process, agriculture, was the start of something great. We no longer depended on hunting or gathering. This allowed Uruk to prosper into a place with over 50,000 residents. Yet this change came at a cost to the human body. The average height of men drastically shrunk from 59 to 53. We were smaller, less noticeable farmers, landlocked and forever changed. In the early 3000 BCE, King Gilgamesh began his rule in Sumeria. Soon after, Sargon the Great took power and conquered all of Sumeria. Meanwhile, in modern-day Pakistan, the Indus Valley civilization was growing. From 3300 to 1300 BCE, they were most notable for their highly advanced toilet system, built with a chute leading to an underground drainage network, actively preventing disease. Contrast this with ancient Egypt, which was more consumed with building pyramids than basic human plumbing. These colossal structures were built for pharaohs like Khufu, who commissioned the famous Great Pyramid of Giza in a labor-intensive 20-year process. Every pharaoh wanted to ensure they were immortal, ruling in perpetuity in the afterlife. Over in China in 2100 BCE, the first Chinese dynasty was upon us. Legend holds that the massive floods of the Yellow River were finally tamed by Yu the Great, who spent 13 years diverting the waterways. The people hailed him as a savior. This tale established a crucial precedent, the idea that power ought to follow one's merit. Back in Mesopotamia around 1772 BCE, a Babylonian king named Hammurabi created the basis of the legal system as we know it today. Written on a 7-foot-tall stone slab was a system of 282 laws. Law 196. If a man destroys the eye of another man, they shall destroy his eye. Hammurabi laid out strict laws, placing people into certain castes of life and value. The value of a noble's bone was worth more than a plebeian's, which was worth more than a slave's. There was no illusion of equality. The clash of titans, Egyptians, Hittites, and Greeks. While in modern-day Turkey, the Hittite Empire rose to power. Under Labarnas, they united their city-states, eventually leaving them right next to their powerful neighbors in Egypt. In modern-day Greece, Mycenaean Greece, 1600 BCE to 1100 BCE, was dominated by an elite warrior society. They developed city-states like Troy and Mycenae, cities that, with their surrounding territory, formed independent states. Egyptian society was created to serve the pharaoh, who sat at the top of the rigid social pyramid as the mediator between the gods and the world of men. Pharaoh Ramesses II, 1279 to 1213 BCE, accomplished extraordinary things through this system, but he ran into a formidable enemy, the Hittites. The Hittite king Mutwalli II and Ramesses II clashed at the city of Kadesh. Ramesses, with 20,000 men, was trapped against the river by the Hittites with 40,000 men. By some miracle, the Hittites never closed the trap, and the battle ended in a costly draw. Both sides, humbled, signed the first peace treaty to ever exist in 1258 BCE. Peace led to prosperity. The Hittites taught the Egyptians metalwork. The Egyptians shared agricultural knowledge. Philosophy, war, and Alexander. While in the east, the Zhou dynasty, 1046 to 256 BCE, introduced the concept of the mandate from heaven. The emperor's virtue determines his right to rule, and no dynasty has a permanent right to rule. It also birthed the foundational philosophies of China. Confucianism, focused on respect, loyalty, and responsibility, and Taoism, focused on aligning oneself with the natural flow of the universe. Around 800 BCE, the Greek city-states realized their land was infertile. To import essential grain, they had to colonize the world around them. Two city-states rose to the forefront, Sparta and Athens. Sparta was a military powerhouse. Every aspect of life focused on physical strength and war. Athens, meanwhile, experimented with democracy, a complicated mess where every citizen, male, non-slave, had a vote in an assembly of over 30,000 people. Not everyone approved. The famous Greek philosopher Plato called the idea barbaric, advocating instead for the rule of a philosopher king, a man who studies wisdom, logic, and reasoning. Meanwhile, the mighty Persian Empire, led by Darius the Great, was determined to conquer Greece. In 490 BCE at the city of Marathon, 10,000 Athenians crushed 20,000 Persian foot soldiers. An Athenian messenger ran the 26.2 miles to Athens with the good news, giving history its first marathon. A decade later, Xerxes I led an enormous invasion force of over 100,000 soldiers. At the narrow pass of Thermopylae, the Spartan king Leonidas held the defense with 7,000 Greeks against the overwhelming Persian force. They fought with courage but were ultimately defeated. The war finally ended at the Battle of Plataea, securing a decisive victory for the Greeks. After the Persian War, a golden age of culture dawned in Athens, marked by architectural wonders like the Parthenon and the rise of theater. But power struggles were inevitable. The rivalry between Athens and Sparta led to the Peloponnesian War. After decades of brutal fighting, both city-states were left significantly weaker, never to regain their former power. The world was ready for a philosopher king to conquer it all. In 356 BCE, in the kingdom of Macedon, the greatest commander in history was born, Alexander the Great. Tutored by Aristotle, the father of logic and the scientific method, Alexander took power at age 20. He marched his army to Thebes, razed the entire city to the ground, killed 6,000 people, and sold the rest into slavery. The Greek city-states recoiled in fear. Alexander then set his sights on Persia. Against Darius III, he won a decisive victory at the Battle of Gaugamela and captured the Persian capital of Persepolis. He continued eastward, conquering all the way to India before his exhausted troops refused to go further. At the age of 32, Alexander died in Babylon, having spread Greek ideals across the known world. His empire fragmented into three major empires ruled by his generals: the Ptolemies in Egypt, the Seleucids in the east, and the Antigonids in Greece. The Roman juggernaut and the rise of faith. Now, for Rome to rise, it had to face a powerful foe, Carthage. The resulting Punic Wars would last decades. The Carthaginian general Hannibal famously invaded Italy with his army, including elephants, winning early battles. But he was ultimately defeated by Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama, cementing Rome's place as the superpower of the West. In the East, after the fall of the short-lived Qin dynasty, the Han dynasty embraced the ideals of Confucianism and began to trade. In 138 BCE, the Silk Road was established, bringing Chinese silk across Central Asia to the Middle East and eventually Europe for high profits. Back in Rome, Julius Caesar embarked on a campaign to conquer the rest of Gaul, modern France, Belgium, etc. After a grueling siege at Alesia, Caesar crushed the Gallic resistance. The Senate, however, feared his popularity. Roman law prohibited any general from crossing the Rubicon River and entering mainland Italy with a standing army. Caesar chose to ignore them, declaring civil war. He was victorious, declared dictator of Rome for life, and assassinated 2 years later in 44 BCE. Caesar's son, Octavian, aligned with Mark Antony to defeat the assassins, but the two soon clashed. Octavian emerged as the undisputed ruler of Rome, appointed Augustus in 27 BCE, becoming the first Roman emperor. During Augustus's reign, a man who would change the world was born in the Roman-occupied city of Bethlehem, Jesus Christ. Despite being viewed as a political threat by the Romans, his crucifixion led to the birth of Christianity. Paul of Tarsus took the word of Jesus Christ across the known world, gaining followers and creating a divide between monotheism and polytheism. When the Great Fire of Rome occurred in 64 AD, Emperor Nero quickly blamed it on the Christians, instigating brutal persecution. Yet, Christianity persisted. Under Emperor Trajan, 98 to 117 AD, the Roman Empire reached its greatest territorial extent, spanning from modern-day Britain to the Persian Gulf. The fracture of Rome and a golden age of thought. By 284 AD, Rome was too large to manage. Emperor Diocletian created the Tetrarchy, dividing the empire into 4. This system created chaos. It was Constantine the Great who, after a vision of the Christian cross, won a decisive battle at the Milvian Bridge. He became the sole ruler and later issued the Edict of Milan, extending religious tolerance for Christians. He renamed the eastern capital from Byzantium to Constantinople. In 370 AD, a new player arrived, the Huns, a barbaric nomadic civilization and masters of warfare. They crossed the Volga River and displaced the Germanic Goths, who were forced to seek sanctuary within the Roman Empire. In 395 AD, Emperor Theodosius the Great split the empire between his 2 sons, creating the Western Roman Empire, Honorius, and the Eastern Roman Empire, Arcadius. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked Rome. It was the first time in nearly 800 years that a foreign army occupied the city. The notorious Attila the Hun gained power in the east, demanding an annual tribute of 2,100 pounds of gold from Constantinople. Though defeated at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains, he marched on Italy. Only the legendary meeting with Pope Leo I caused Attila to pull out of Italy. Finally, in 476 AD, the Germanic general Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustus, effectively marking the end of the Western Roman Empire. The Islamic Caliphate and the Crusades. While Europe entered a dark age, India under the Gupta Empire was in a mathematical golden age. Brahmagupta started using 0 as a placeholder, and Aryabhata calculated the circumference of the Earth. In the East, the Byzantine Empire, under Justinian I, expanded and codified all the laws of the Roman Empire into the Corpus Juris Civilis, the basis of European laws today. But in the small town of Mecca, a new prophet arose, Mohammed. After receiving the word of God from the angel Gabriel, he gained followers and faced resistance from the pagans of Mecca, forcing his migration to Medina, the Hijra. At the time of his death, the Muslims had successfully united the Arabian Peninsula. Under the caliphs, the Muslim community expanded with unparalleled speed. By 716 AD, they commanded a vast empire stretching from Lisbon to China. Their expansion into modern-day France was halted by Charles Martel and the Franks at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD, a defining battle between Christianity and Islam. In the West, Charlemagne was crowned the first Holy Roman Emperor in 800 AD, but after his death, his empire was bludgeoned by the Vikings, barbaric, wealth-seeking pagans from Scandinavia. This constant threat led to the recreation of feudalism. People willingly farmed for local leaders in exchange for protection, creating a rigid social pyramid where the Pope sat at the top, having God-given ownership of all lands. The holy city of Jerusalem became the focal point of the Christian and Muslim worlds. When the Seljuk Turks took over Muslim holy sites, Pope Urban II called upon all Christians to liberate the Holy Land, launching the First Crusade in 1095. Driven by faith and a promise of spiritual rewards, the Crusaders took Jerusalem in 1099. This victory was short-lived. In 1187, the Muslim commander Saladin declared a holy war, decisively crushing the Crusader forces at the Battle of Hattin, paving the way for his conquest of Jerusalem. Mongols, plagues, and the Age of Discovery. In Mongolia, a man named Genghis Khan was born. After his father's death, his clan deserted him. Through sheer force of will, he united all the Mongolian tribes by 1206. His cavalry-based army swept through one kingdom after another, with skilled workers being spared and aristocrats being killed. At his death, his empire stretched from the Sea of Japan to the Caspian Sea. In a stunning genetic legacy, around 8% of the men in South Asia descend from Genghis Khan today. In England, King John faced pressure from his barons, resulting in the Magna Carta in 1215. This document established the right to a fair trial, due process, and the principle of habeas corpus, a cornerstone of modern legal systems. As England and France clashed in the petty, erratic Hundred Years' War, the world faced a catastrophe like no other, the bubonic plague. Historians believe 75 to 200 million people died. With the death of so many poor farmers, those who survived were able to demand more rights from landowners. The Byzantine Empire was in rapid decline. In 1453, Sultan Mehmed II led an Ottoman army of 80,000 soldiers to besiege Constantinople. After weeks of bombardment, the Ottomans breached the walls and captured the capital, replacing the Roman legacy with the beginning of utter Ottoman domination in the region. Then, in 1492, as Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, the Europeans discovered the New World, opening a new chapter in history. The modern world, from Renaissance to Revolution. Europe was now in a golden age of culture, the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa, Michelangelo sculpted David. In the political world, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince, asserting that it is much safer to be feared than loved. But change was coming. In 1517, Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door, protesting the sale of indulgences and sparking the beginning of Protestantism. The age of exploration quickly turned brutal. In 1519, Hernán Cortés and his Spanish conquistadors arrived on the Aztec shores. The Spanish, aided by superior military technology and diseases like smallpox to which the native population had no immunity, conquered the Aztec Empire in 1521. A few years later, Francisco Pizarro conquered the Incan Empire. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottoman Empire reached its zenith, stretching from southeastern Europe to the Arabian deserts. Meanwhile, in England, King Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church to form the Church of England for love and power. Russia, under the paranoid and brutal rule of Ivan the Terrible, experienced a bloody campaign of terror against his own people. In 1776, a group of American patriots declared, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." War with Britain followed. The decisive American victory at Yorktown in 1781 marked the beginning of a new experiment, democracy. The French, inspired by the American success and fed up with the excesses of the monarchy, launched the French Revolution. After the storming of the Bastille and the execution of King Louis XVI, a radical period known as the Reign of Terror began under Maximilien Robespierre, who was himself executed in 1794. The ensuing instability allowed General Napoleon Bonaparte to seize control. He defeated a combined Austro-Russian army at Austerlitz and conquered much of the continent, until his disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812. Defeated at Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon's domination ended. The modern crucible, wars and global reckoning. In the mid-19th century, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote the Communist Manifesto, urging the working class, the proletariats, to seize the means of production. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. The following decades saw the scramble for Africa, where European powers ruthlessly carved up the continent, exploiting resources and creating artificial borders that bred future conflict. All of Europe's tensions exploded on June 28, 1914, with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. This single shot sparked World War I, which ended 4 years later, bringing the demise of the Ottoman Empire. The peace was short-lived. In 1939, Adolf Hitler invaded Poland, setting off World War II. Like the great conquerors before him, Alexander, Caesar, Genghis Khan, Hitler sought to build an empire of global dominance. But in April 1945, the combined forces of the Allies and Soviets closed in. After the surrender of Germany and following the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan, the war finally ended. From that point on, a technological revolution began. Alan Turing's invention of the computer during the war led to a globalized world. Cell phones and the internet changed how we communicate. Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. The history of human civilizations is an incomplete book, constantly being updated. But some things will never change, as Gilgamesh realized so long ago. Life which you look for, you will never find. For when gods created man, they let death be his share and life withheld in their own hands. Humans will always die. Empires will always rise and fall. The masses will always clamor toward safety.